They say you never really know someone until you live with them. Well, I'm here to tell you that's only half true. Sometimes you don't really know someone until they think you're too old, too weak, or too stupid to fight back. My name is Eleanor Margaret Thompson. My friends call me Ellie. I'm 67 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I thought I knew my daughter better than I knew myself. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when everything started to unravel. I remember because Tuesdays were sacred to me, the night I watched my documentary programs on the History Channel. My late husband Robert had gotten me hooked on them 30 years ago. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m., we'd sit on our leather sofa, the one he'd saved up 3 months of overtime to buy, and we'd travel through time together. World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the space race. Even after Robert passed 8 years ago, I kept the tradition alive. It made me feel close to him. That particular Tuesday, they were airing a special about the Tuskegee Airmen. I had just settled into my spot on the right side of the sofa. Robert's side was still on the left, and yeah, I know how that sounds, with my favorite mug in hand. It was white ceramic with a faded photo of Robert and me on our 30th anniversary. The coffee was still hot, steam curling up like tiny ghosts. The narrator had just started describing the first combat mission when the screen went black. Not flickered, not buffered, just black. "What the?" I started to say, but then I heard it. That distinctive click of the cable box being unplugged. I turned around, and there he was, Brandon Keith Blake, my son-in-law of 5 years, standing there with the cable cord dangling from his hand like a dead snake, wearing that smile he probably practiced in the mirror, the one that never quite reached his eyes. "Hey, Ellie," he said, way too casual for a man who'd just walked into someone's home without knocking and killed their TV mid-sentence. "We need to talk about some changes around here. Not hi, Mom, not even Eleanor or Mrs. Thompson, just Ellie, like we were college roommates or something." I set my mug down carefully on the side table, the one Robert had built in our garage back in '92. My hands were steady, but my jaw was tight. "Brandon," I said, keeping my voice level, "what are you doing?" He dropped the cable cord on the floor, on my hardwood floor that I just had refinished last year, and shrugged. "Come on, Ellie. Nobody watches cable anymore. It's 2024. Everything's streaming now. Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff." "I watch cable," I said. "Yeah, well," he glanced around my living room like he was surveying property he already owned. "That's kind of the point. This whole setup, this ancient stuff." He gestured vaguely at my sofa, my side tables, my framed photos of Robert. "It's making the house look like a museum, and frankly, we need to modernize." "We." That word hung in the air like smoke. "We?" I repeated slowly. "Yeah, you know, the house. We're trying to increase the property value. Can't do that if it looks like 1985 in here." He laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that had sharp edges. "No offense." I stood up. "I'm only 5'4", and Brandon's got a good 10 inches on me, but I straightened my spine the way my mother taught me. The way I'd learned in 40 years of corporate America, climbing from secretary to chief financial officer. The way I'd perfected when dealing with men who thought gray hair meant soft brain. "This is my house, Brandon," I said quietly. "Well, yeah, technically," he started. "Not technically, actually. I paid off this mortgage 12 years ago with the life insurance money from Robert's death. My name is on the deed. Mine. Not yours. Not even Jenny's." Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or surprise that I'd pushed back, but it vanished quick as it came. Right, of course," he said, all smooth again. "I just meant, as a family. We're all living here together now, so we should all have a say in how it looks. Team effort and all that." That's when I heard the footsteps on the stairs. My daughter appeared in the doorway, and for a second, just a flash, she looked like the little girl who used to run to me crying over scraped knees and mean kids at school. But then she opened her mouth, and that image shattered. "Mom," Jenny said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Brandon and we talked about this." "Did you?" I asked. "Because I don't remember being part of that conversation." "Come on, Mom, don't be like that." She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she'd had since she was 6. "Brandon's just trying to help. He's got some really good ideas about updating the place, making it more modern, more livable." More livable. as if I'd been living in a dump for the past 38 years. "And the cable?" I asked, looking at the cord still lying on the floor like a murdered thing. Brandon jumped in before Jenny could answer. "We'll get you set up with streaming services. Way better selection. You can watch whatever you want whenever you want. It's an upgrade, Ellie. You'll love it." I loved what I had, I said. Silence. Brandon's smile got tighter. "Well, the cable bill was getting pretty steep anyway. Makes more financial sense to cut it." And there it was, the thing that made my stomach drop. I'd been paying all the utilities since Jenny and Brandon moved in 18 months ago. "Just temporarily," they'd said, "until we get back on our feet." Brandon had lost his job as a business consultant, or so he claimed, right before their lease was up, and Jenny begged me to let them stay just for a few months. A few months had turned into a year and a half, and in all that time, I'd never once asked them to contribute to the cable bill, or the electric, or the water, or the property taxes that ran me $8,200 a year. But sure, I was the problem because I wanted to watch my documentaries in peace. "The cable stays," I said firmly, "or rather it gets plugged back in, right now." Brandon's jaw twitched. For a second I thought he might actually argue. But then Jenny stepped forward, putting a hand on his arm. "Mom, we'll talk about this later, okay?" she said softly. "When everyone's calmed down." "I am calm," I said. And I was. That was the thing. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was just seeing clearly for the first time in a while. "Come on, babe," Jenny said to Brandon, tugging him toward the stairs. "Let's give Mom some space." They left, but Brandon paused in the doorway, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "By the way," he said casually, "I ran into Bob Hartley at the store yesterday. Your neighbor? He mentioned how great the house is looking from the outside. Said he didn't realize we'd just bought the place." My blood went cold. "I corrected him, of course," Brandon continued, still in that breezy tone. "Told him we'd been living here for a while, but it got me thinking. Maybe we should update the exterior, too. Really make it look like a fresh start, you know?" He was gone before I could respond. I stood there in my living room, in the house I'd lived in for 38 years, and felt like a stranger in my own home. And that's when I noticed it, sitting on the coffee table where it definitely hadn't been before. A brochure. Sunnybrook Senior Living, where your golden years shine. I picked it up with shaking hands. Someone had dog-eared page 7, which featured photos of smiling elderly people playing bingo and doing chair yoga. At the bottom of the page, in handwriting I didn't recognize, someone had written, "Worth looking into?" I sat back down on Robert's side of the sofa, still holding the brochure, and stared at the black TV screen. In the reflection I could see myself, a 67-year-old woman with short silver hair, wearing a cardigan Robert had bought me on our last vacation to Maine, sitting alone in a house that suddenly felt very, very small. "Oh, Robert," I whispered to the empty room. "I think we have a problem." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I'd done for 40 years as a chief financial officer. I observed, I documented, and I looked for patterns. People think finance is all about numbers, but that's only half of it. The real skill is spotting the things that don't add up, the expense reports that are just slightly too perfect, the numbers that are too round, the employees who suddenly start acting different. The red flags you only see if you're paying attention. So I paid attention. At 6:47 a.m. Wednesday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my second cup of coffee when I heard Brandon's footsteps upstairs. He was always an early riser, which I'd thought was admirable. Now I wondered what he was doing up there while everyone else slept. At 7:15, I heard him come downstairs. I stayed quiet, listening. The creak of my office door opening, the sound of papers shuffling, the click of a drawer that I knew for a fact I'd locked 2 nights ago. My office was off limits. Everyone knew that. It was the one room in the house where I kept my important documents, my financial records, my memories of Robert that were too precious to display where Brandon could comment on them. I gave him 5 minutes. Then I walked quietly to the office doorway. He had his back to me, hunched over my desk, rifling through a stack of mail that had come yesterday. My bank statements, my investment summaries, a letter from my attorney about updating my will. "Looking for something?" I asked. Brandon jumped about a foot in the air, whirling around with his hand pressed to his chest like a southern belle with the vapors. "Jesus, Ellie, you scared me half to death." He laughed, but it was forced. I thought I saw a letter addressed to me mixed in with your mail. Must have been mistaken. Must have been, I said flatly. Since you have your own apartment's mail forwarded to your mother's house, not here. I'd checked. 3 months ago, when I was starting to wonder why Brandon never seemed to get any mail at all. Right, yeah. He moved away from the desk, smoothing down his shirt. My bad. Old habit from when I was freelancing. Always checking everywhere for invoices. He squeezed past me in the doorway, and I caught a whiff of his cologne. Something expensive and aggressive that I'm pretty sure cost more than my monthly water bill. Funny thing about unemployed people, they don't usually smell like $200 cologne. After he left for the gym, or wherever he went every morning, I checked my desk. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, which somehow made it worse. He'd been careful, practiced. This wasn't his first rodeo. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. At the top, I typed, Observations, September 2024. Then I started listing. September 18th. Brandon accessed my office without permission. Went through mail, including bank statements and legal documents. Claimed he was looking for his own mail. Lie. Confirmed his mail goes to 427 Oakwood, his mother's address. September 18th. Continued. Note to self. Check when Brandon became unemployed. He claims 6 months ago, March 2024. Verify. I spent the next hour doing something I should have done a year ago. I checked Brandon's social media. His Instagram was a masterclass in fake success. Photo after photo of him at high-end restaurants, bars, boutique shops. The captions were all about closing deals, networking, building the brand. One from 2 weeks ago showed a $75 Wagyu steak dinner at Morton's Steakhouse, captioned, When you nail the pitch, you celebrate right. Hashtag business owner, hashtag self-made, hashtag steakhouse life. I did the math. Morton's, downtown Portland. Table for 2, based on the photo. With drinks and tip, that meal probably ran him $300, minimum. Where was an unemployed man getting that kind of money? I kept scrolling. Another post from a month ago. Brandon holding shopping bags from Nordstrom and Hugo Boss. Treat yourself like the success you are, and success will follow. Hashtag invest in yourself. Hashtag luxury lifestyle. And another. A selfie in front of a BMW dealership. Soon, very soon. Hashtag goals. Hashtag level up. Every single post was about money he didn't have, pursuing a lifestyle he couldn't afford. Or could he? I opened my banking app and pulled up my checking account history. I'd been too trusting, too busy feeling grateful that Jenny had come home, too willing to believe that Brandon was just going through a rough patch. But now, looking at the numbers with fresh eyes, I saw it. Small withdrawals. $200 here, $350 there, never the same amount, never from the same ATM, never enough to trigger alarm bells. But over the past 6 months, $14,780, nearly $15,000, gone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I checked my credit card next. The one I kept in my wallet for emergencies, the one with a $20,000 limit that I never used. Current balance, $7,943. Charges from the past 3 months included Morton's Steakhouse, $312. Nordstrom, $892. Shell Gas Station, $95. Total Wine and More, $246. Coach, $534. Every single purchase. On the exact dates Brandon had posted about them on Instagram. He'd been using my card. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down. How? When? I'd never given him access to my wallet, never shared my PIN. I kept my purse locked in my bedroom when I wasn't using it. Unless... I ran upstairs to my bedroom, pulled my purse from the closet, and checked my wallet. The credit card was there, right where it should be. But when I pulled it out, I noticed something. The magnetic strip on the back looked slightly scratched, like it had been slid through a reader multiple times more than usual. He'd taken it, used it, and put it back. God knows how many times. I sat on the edge of my bed, the bed I'd shared with Robert for 33 years, and felt something crack open inside my chest. This wasn't just theft. This was planning. This was calculated. This was a long game. And if Brandon was playing the long game with my money, what else was he planning? I thought about the nursing home brochure. The way he'd unplugged my cable like he owned the place. The comment about updating the property value. The fact that he'd told my neighbor we'd just bought the house. A coldness settled over me, the kind I used to feel in boardroom negotiations when I realized someone was trying to screw me over. I pulled out my phone again and called Jenny's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's Jenny. Can't get to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll call you back. Bye." So cheerful, so oblivious. Or was she? "Jenny," I said after the beep, keeping my voice steady. "It's Mom. We need to talk. Call me back as soon as you get this." She didn't call back. Not that day, not the next. But that night, Wednesday night around 11 p.m., I heard them talking. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom when I heard voices drifting down from the upstairs bedroom. Their door was cracked open, and sound carried in this old house. Robert and I had learned that when Jenny was a teenager trying to sneak phone calls after bedtime. "Don't know how much longer we can keep this up," Jenny was saying. She sounded tired, stressed. "Babe, relax, it's almost done." That was Brandon, and he sounded excited, like a kid on Christmas Eve. "I just feel terrible. She's my mom." I know. But she's not exactly making this easy, is she? I mean, did you see how she freaked out about the cable? Over cable, Jen. She's being completely unreasonable." Silence. Then Jenny, quieter. "Maybe we're being unreasonable. Maybe we should just—" "Don't." Brandon's voice went hard. "Don't start second-guessing this now. We talked about this. We agreed. Your mom's great and all, but she can't live here forever. It's not sustainable. And you said yourself, she's been acting weird lately. Forgetting stuff. Getting confused. I said she forgot where she put her glasses one time. And leaving the stove on. And getting lost on the way home from the grocery store. She didn't get lost. She took a different route because of construction. Jenny," his voice softened, turned gentle. "I love that you want to defend her. But we have to think about what's best for everyone, including her. And the paperwork is almost ready. Another month, maybe less, and we'll have full control. Then we can sell this." A door slammed somewhere, and I couldn't hear the rest. But I'd heard enough. I walked back to my bedroom on legs that felt like water, closed the door, and locked it. Then I went to my closet, pulled down the shoebox from the top shelf, the one that held Robert's old watch, his wedding ring, and a photo of us on our first date. And I sat on the floor and cried. Not because I was sad, because I was furious. "They think I'm weak," I whispered to Robert's photo. "They think I've grown soft. They forgot who the hell I am." I wiped my eyes, put the photo back in the box, and stood up. Time to remind them. Thursday morning, I called in sick to my volunteer position at the community library. I never called in sick. In 40 years of work, I'd used maybe 10 sick days total. But today, I needed to be home. More specifically, I needed Brandon and Jenny to think I was gone. At 8:30 a.m., I made a big show of getting dressed, grabbing my purse, and announcing I had a doctor's appointment in Beaverton and would be gone most of the day. Brandon barely looked up from his phone. Jenny gave me a distracted, "Feel better, Mom," while packing the kids' lunches for school. I drove around the block, parked 2 streets over, and walked back through Mrs. Chen's backyard. With her permission, I'd called her at 7 a.m. and told her I needed a favor. No questions asked. Mrs. Chen had been my neighbor for 20 years. She didn't ask questions. I let myself in through the back door at 9:15 a.m., just as I heard Brandon's BMW pull out of the driveway. The house was silent. I stood in my own kitchen, feeling like a burglar, and listened to the sound of my heartbeat. Then I went upstairs to Brandon and Jenny's bedroom. I'd been raised to respect privacy. I'd never been the kind of mother who snooped through her daughter's diary or searched her room for contraband. Even now, standing at their bedroom door, I felt a wave of shame. But then I remembered. The paperwork is almost ready. I pushed the door open. Their room was immaculate. Jenny had always been neat, but this was something else. The bed was made with hospital corners, not a single item of clothing on the floor. Everything color-coordinated and organized. It looked like a hotel room, sterile. Temporary, like they were ready to leave at a moment's notice. I started with the obvious places, the nightstand drawers, the dresser, under the bed. Nothing but clothes, charging cables, and old receipts. Then I moved to the closet. Brandon's side was all designer labels. Hugo Boss suits, Ralph Lauren shirts, Kenneth Cole shoes. Easily $10,000 worth of clothes for a man who'd been unemployed for 6 months. On Jenny's side, pushed to the back behind her winter coats, I found a banker's box. It was the kind you use for documents. Heavy cardboard, lid that fit snug, and it was locked with a combination lock. I almost gave up right there. But then I remembered something. Jenny had used the same 4-digit combination for everything since high school. Her locker, her luggage, her old diary. Robert's birthday. 0814, August 14th. I dialed it in. The lock clicked open. Inside were file folders, lots of them, organized with colored tabs. The first folder was labeled Property. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a printout from Zillow showing my house. 2,847 Maple Ridge Drive. Listed value, $847,000. Someone, Brandon, based on the handwriting, had written notes in the margins. After repairs/updates, estimated $950,000. Commission 6%, $57,000. Net profit after payoff, approximately $890,000. Payoff? What payoff? I didn't have a mortgage. I kept reading. Clipped to the Zillow printout was a loan application from Pacific Northwest Trust and Loan for a home equity line of credit for $350,000, using my house as collateral. The application was dated 3 weeks ago. It had my name on it, my social security number, my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. It was close, really close. Someone had practiced, but the loop on the E in Eleanor was wrong, and I always dotted my I's slightly to the left. This signature dotted them dead center. I felt my breakfast rising in my throat. The second folder was labeled Medical. Inside were printed articles about dementia, Alzheimer's, age-related cognitive decline. Someone had highlighted specific passages. Early symptoms may include forgetfulness, confusion about time or place, and difficulty completing familiar tasks. Family members may notice personality changes or withdrawal from social activities. Legal intervention may become necessary if the individual is deemed unable to make sound financial decisions. There was also a pamphlet about securing power of attorney for incapacitated family members, and a handwritten note. Dr. Stevenson, friendly to our situation, will write letter if needed. $500. They were building a case, a fake case that I was losing my mind. The third folder made me sit down on the floor. It was labeled Sunnybrook. Inside was the full brochure I'd found downstairs, plus a contract. An admission contract for Sunnybrook Senior Living. It was dated for October 15th, 3 weeks from now. The resident line had my name typed in. The emergency contact/financial guarantor line had Brandon Keith Blake. There was a deposit receipt for $5,000, dated last week, paid from an account I didn't recognize. And there was a separate document titled Voluntary Admission and Transfer of Assets. In this document, supposedly signed by me, but absolutely not my signature, I agreed to 1. Enter Sunnybrook Senior Living voluntarily due to inability to care for myself. 2. Transfer financial power of attorney to Brandon Keith Blake. 3. Grant permission for the sale of my property to cover care costs. 4. Waive any claim to proceeds beyond the cost of my care. At the bottom of the document, in tiny print, was a clause that made my blood run cold. In the event that care costs exceed available assets, the resident agrees that their designated POA may make decisions regarding the continuation or termination of care arrangements. They could put me in there and then decide I couldn't afford to stay. They could kick me out with nothing, no house, no money, no power to fight back. I sat there on the floor of my daughter's closet, surrounded by evidence of the most elaborate betrayal I could imagine, and something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped, like a rubber band pulled too tight, releasing all its energy at once. I pulled out my phone and took photos, every single page, every document, every forged signature. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, locked the box, and placed it behind the winter coats. I went downstairs, grabbed my car keys, and drove. Not home, not yet. I drove to the one person I knew I could trust. Dorothy Sullivan lived in a craftsman-style house 3 miles away, near the university. We'd met 40 years ago in a continuing education class on financial planning, back when we were both young mothers trying to build careers in fields that didn't particularly want us. She'd gone into law. I'd gone into finance, and we'd been friends ever since. When I pulled into her driveway at 10:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, when I should have been at my fake doctor's appointment. Her front door opened before I even got out of the car. "Eleanor Margaret Thompson," she said, standing on her porch in jeans and a University of Oregon sweatshirt. "You look like hell." I laughed. It came out strangled. "Can I come in?" "Honey, you never have to ask." 20 minutes later, we were sitting at her kitchen table. I'd shown her every photo on my phone. She'd made coffee neither of us were drinking. "That son of a bitch," Dot said finally. She was 70 years old, a retired family court judge, and she'd probably heard every kind of horrible thing humans could do to each other. But her hands were shaking. "Ellie, this is elder abuse. This is fraud. This is betrayal," I finished, "from my own daughter. Does Jenny know the extent of it?" "I don't know." I stared at my cold coffee. I heard them talking. She sounded reluctant, guilty, but she didn't stop him. Guilt isn't innocence. I know. Dot reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "What do you want to do?" I looked at her. This woman who'd fought her way to a judgeship in the 1980s, who'd raised 3 kids as a single mother after her husband died, who'd never once backed down from a fight. "I want to destroy him," I said quietly. "Good." Dot squeezed my hand. "Let's call Tim." Timothy Anderson was Dot's youngest son and one of the best family law attorneys in Portland. I'd watched him grow up, helped him with college application essays, celebrated when he passed the bar. He arrived at his mother's house within an hour, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing an expression I recognized from his mother, controlled fury. "Aunt Ellie," he said, hugging me tight. He'd called me that since he was 6. Mom filled me in. "Can I see the photos?" I handed him my phone. He scrolled through them, his jaw getting tighter with each swipe. Finally, he set the phone down and looked at me. "Okay," he said. "Here's where we are legally. This is fraud, forgery, attempted exploitation of a vulnerable person, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. We could prosecute. We probably should prosecute." "But," I asked, "but you're going to want evidence that's admissible in court. Photos from your phone are a good start, but we need the actual documents. And we need to prove that you're not incapacitated, since that's clearly going to be his defense." I'm as sharp as I've ever been. "I know that. My mom knows that. But we need documentation. Medical evaluation, cognitive testing, the works." Dot leaned forward. "How long would that take?" "I can fast-track it. Call in some favors. Maybe a week?" Tim pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "In the meantime, we need to set a trap." "What kind of trap?" I asked. "The kind where he thinks he's winning." Tim looked up at me, and I saw his mother's steel in his eyes. "We let him think the plan is working. We gather evidence. And when he makes his move, when he tries to actually use those forged documents, we nail him." "That's risky," Dot said. "What if he moves faster than we think? What if he tries to take her to Sunnybrook before we're ready?" "Then we get a restraining order and file immediately. But honestly, guys like this, they're cocky. They think they've got it all figured out. He's going to want to do this perfectly, which means he'll stick to his timeline." Tim looked at me. "The admission date is October 15th, right?" I nodded. "That gives us 3 weeks. Plenty of time." "What do I do?" I asked. "Act normal. Don't let on that you know anything. If he's monitoring your behavior for signs of dementia, give him what he wants. Forget small things. Get a little confused. Play into it. You want me to act senile?" The idea made my skin crawl. "I want you to act just impaired enough that he feels confident, but not so impaired that he panics and moves up the timeline." Tim reached out and put his hand over mine. "Aunt Ellie, I know this is awful. I know it goes against every instinct you have, but we need him to feel safe. We need him to make a mistake." Dot spoke up. "What kind of mistake?" "The kind where he tries to use those documents. Ideally, where he tries to access her accounts or file the power of attorney paperwork. Once he takes that step, we have him on attempted fraud with clear intent." Tim flipped to a new page on his legal pad. "I'm also going to run a background check on him, see if there's a history here." "I should have done that before he married my daughter," I said bitterly. "You trusted your daughter's judgment. That's not a character flaw, Ellie. That's being a good mother." I wasn't sure I agreed. We spent the next hour mapping out a plan. Tim would get me an appointment with a neurologist, his mother-in-law, as it turned out, for cognitive testing. Dot would help me document everything I owned, bank accounts, investment portfolios, the deed to the house, and make sure it was all secured. And I would go home and pretend everything was fine. One more thing, Tim said as he was packing up. We should install cameras. Hidden ones. Your house is your property, so it's legal. And if Brandon tries anything at all, we'll have it on video. Where would we put them? I asked. Living room, kitchen, your office. Anywhere he might try to access documents or have conversations he thinks are private. Tim pulled out his phone. I know a guy who does security systems. Discreet. He can have them installed tomorrow if you can get Brandon out of the house for a few hours. He goes to the gym every morning from 9 to 11. Perfect. As I was leaving, Dot walked me to my car. The afternoon sun was warm, but I felt cold all over. Ellie, she said, I need to ask you something. Okay? If Jenny's involved, really involved, not just manipulated, can you handle that? Can you handle your daughter facing consequences? I thought about the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart, the young woman I'd been so proud of when she graduated with her teaching degree. And then I thought about that signature, voluntary admission and transfer of assets. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I can't let them do this to me, and I can't let Brandon do this to whoever he'd target next. Dot pulled me into a fierce hug. We've got your back. You're not fighting this alone. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel. When I pulled into the driveway at 3:30 p.m., just in time to pick up my grandkids from school, like I did every Thursday, Brandon's BMW was in the driveway. I grabbed my purse, put on my best tired smile, and walked into my own house like I didn't know it was about to become a battlefield. Brandon was in the kitchen, making himself a protein shake with my blender. Hey, Ellie, he said cheerfully. How was the doctor? Oh, you know, I said, setting my purse down and pretending to look confused. Wait, where did I... Oh, there it is. I laughed a little too airily. I swear I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. Brandon's eyes sharpened with interest. Everything okay? He asked, all concern. Fine, just tired. The doctor said... I trailed off, like I'd forgotten what I was going to say. Well, anyway, I should go pick up Lily and Max. I can do it, Brandon offered. No, I want to. I love seeing their little faces. I grabbed my keys, then paused. Wait, did I just have these? Oh, right, in my hand. Another laugh. I could feel Brandon watching me as I left. Good. Let him watch. Let him think he was winning. Because in 3 weeks he was going to learn that the worst thing you can do is underestimate a woman who's been counting money and bodies for 40 years. Game on. The security guy Tim sent, a retired cop named Dave who looked like he'd seen some shit, installed the cameras on Friday morning while Brandon was at the gym. By which I mean, based on his Instagram story from that day, he was actually at some bougie coffee shop downtown, taking selfies with his green juice. Dave put 3 cameras total. One hidden in the living room bookshelf behind my collection of Robert's old National Geographic magazines, one in the kitchen tucked inside the decorative rooster cookie jar I never used, and one in my office built into the smoke detector. They're motion activated, Dave explained, showing me the app on my phone. You'll get alerts when they pick up activity, and everything uploads to the cloud automatically. Even if someone finds the cameras and destroys them, we've still got the footage. How long do they record? I asked. Continuously, but the motion-activated clips get flagged for easy review. You can watch live feed anytime from your phone. He handed me a card with a login and password. Don't share this with anyone, not even your daughter. Especially not my daughter, I said quietly. Dave gave me a long look. Ma'am, if you don't mind me saying, I did this job for 25 years. Saw a lot of elder abuse cases. The ones that hurt the worst? Always family. I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be sorry yet, I said. Be sorry for them when this is over. He cracked a smile. Yes, ma'am. After Dave left, I sat in my office and practiced my performance. See, the thing about pretending to have dementia is that you can't overdo it. Go too far and people get suspicious. Real cognitive decline is subtle at first, little things that add up over time. So I started small. Friday afternoon, I forgot that I'd already made coffee and made a second pot. Left it on the counter, wandered off. Brandon found it an hour later. Ellie? He called out. Did you mean to make 2 pots of coffee? I came into the kitchen looking confused. I only made 1. There's 2 here, he pointed. I stared at them like I was seeing them for the first time. Oh my, I must have. Well, I don't remember doing that. I laughed it off, but I made sure to look a little embarrassed, a little worried. Brandon's expression was pure satisfaction. Saturday, I asked Jenny what day it was. Twice, an hour apart. Mom, I told you, it's Saturday. Right, of course. Saturday. I shook my head. I don't know where my mind is today. Sunday, I went to the grocery store and came back with everything except the one thing I'd gone for, milk. I made a big deal about it, standing in front of the open fridge looking distressed. I could have sworn I bought milk. I remember putting it in the cart. Jenny checked my receipt. It's not on here, Mom. You must have forgotten. But I remember. I trailed off, looking genuinely upset. Because here's the thing. I was upset. Not about the milk, but about the fact that I had to pretend to be losing my mind to catch the people trying to steal my life. The cameras caught everything. Monday morning, I reviewed the footage from the weekend while Brandon was out. Saturday night, 11:47 p.m. Brandon and Jenny in the kitchen, whispering. Brandon, did you see her today? She's getting worse. Jenny, voice tight. She forgot about the milk. That's not. People forget stuff, Brandon. Brandon. Yeah, but combined with everything else, the coffee, asking what day it is. Babe, this is textbook early stage dementia. Jenny. Maybe we should take her to a doctor. Brandon. We will, but not yet. We need to document this pattern first. Build the case. Pause. Jenny. I hate this. I really hate this. Brandon, softer, pulling her close. I know, but we're doing this for her. She needs professional care, and we can't afford to give it to her here. This way she'll be safe, and we can finally get our lives started. Don't you want that? A real home of our own? Security for the kids? Jenny, quietly. Yeah, I do. Brandon. Then trust me, just a couple more weeks. I watched that clip 3 times. Each time I focused on my daughter's face. The guilt, the hesitation, the way she let Brandon pull her into his arms even though every line of her body said she wanted to run. Was she a victim too? Or was she just a coward? I didn't know anymore. Tuesday morning, Brandon made his first real mistake. I'd left my purse on the kitchen counter. On purpose. Inside was my checkbook, sitting right on top where anyone could see it. I was upstairs, watching the live feed on my phone. At 9:23 a.m., Brandon came into the kitchen, looked around, checked the doorway to make sure no one was coming. Then he opened my purse. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. He pulled out the checkbook, flipped to a blank check, and set it on the counter. Then he pulled out his phone and took a photo of one of my old checks, one I'd written weeks ago to the electric company. He was copying my signature. I watched him practice on a napkin. Once, twice, 3 times. Getting the loops right, the pressure, the slant. Then he filled out the blank check. Pay to the order of Brandon K. Blake. Amount, $15,000. Memo line, personal loan, to be repaid. He signed my name. It was good. Really good. If I hadn't been watching him forge it in real time, I might have thought it was mine. He took a photo of the completed check, then carefully tore it out of the checkbook, folded it, and put it in his wallet. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I texted Tim. Got him. Check forgery on video. Clear as day. His response came back in 30 seconds. Perfect. Don't cash that check. Let him try. We want attempted fraud, not just forgery. Wednesday was trash day. I took the opportunity to make my biggest mistake yet. I threw away my bills. Not on purpose, of course. I accidentally tossed the stack of unopened mail in the recycling bin along with some junk mail, then went about my day. Brandon found them an hour later. Ellie! He came into the living room holding the bills, looking concerned. Did you mean to throw these away? I looked up from my book, one I was pretending to read but had been on the same page for 20 minutes. Throw what away? Your bills. Electric, water, property tax. They were in the recycling. I frowned. No, they weren't. I put those on my desk to deal with later. I literally just found them in the bin outside. I stood up, looking confused and a little defensive. Brandon, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't put them there. Well, someone did. Maybe Jenny was cleaning up. Jenny's at work, Ellie. He said my name with exaggerated patience, like talking to a child. It's just us here. I looked at the bills in his hands, then at the recycling bin visible through the kitchen doorway, and I let my face crumple just a little. I don't remember doing that. It's okay. He was all sympathy now, smelling blood in the water. These things happen. Tell you what, why don't you let me handle the bills for a while, just until you're feeling more like yourself? I can handle my own bills, I said, but I made sure I sounded uncertain. I'm sure you can, but there's no shame in accepting help. He put the bills on the coffee table. I'll take care of these. You just relax. After he left the room, I checked my phone. The camera had caught the whole thing, including the moment when Brandon had carefully placed those bills in the recycling bin himself at 10:15 a.m., 45 minutes before he found them. He was framing me, gaslighting me in my own home, building his case. I sent the clip to Tim with a message. He's escalating. Tim's response: good, means we're close. Hang in there. The fall happened on Thursday. It wasn't real, but it had to look real. Dave, the security guy, had coached me on how to do it safely, how to control the descent, how to protect my head, where to position myself so the cameras would catch it. The key, he'd said, is commitment. You gotta sell it. But don't actually hurt yourself, because that defeats the whole purpose. I waited until 2 p.m. when Brandon was home but Jenny was still at work. I wanted him to be the one who found me. I needed him to make the call alone. I positioned myself at the top of the stairs, the carpeted ones, not the hardwood, and I took 3 deep breaths. Then I screamed and let myself fall. I'd practiced this in Tim's office, falling onto gym mats, but doing it for real on the stairs was terrifying. I hit 3 steps, controlling each impact, and landed at the bottom in a heap. My hip was going to bruise. My shoulder ached, but nothing was broken. I lay there and waited. Ellie? Brandon's voice coming from the office. Footsteps. You okay? I didn't answer. More footsteps, faster now. He appeared at the top of the stairs. Oh my God, Ellie! He ran down to me. Don't move. Don't move. What happened? I fell. I let my voice sound weak, disoriented. My ankle, I think I twisted. Stay still. I'm calling 911. No! I grabbed his arm. No ambulance, please. I'm fine, I just need... You are not fine. You fell down the goddamn stairs. He pulled out his phone, but he didn't dial 911. I watched through half-closed eyes as he scrolled through his contacts and selected a different number. Hey, it's Brandon Blake. Yeah, the one we talked about last week. She fell. Down the stairs. Yeah, I think it's time. Uh-huh. Okay, we can be there in 30 minutes. He wasn't calling an ambulance. He was calling Sunny Brook. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression dazed. Ellie, I'm taking you to get checked out, okay? There's a facility nearby that specializes in this kind of thing. They're going to take good care of you. I don't need a facility. I need my bed. Trust me on this, okay? He was already texting someone. Jenny, probably. You might have a concussion. We need to get you evaluated. He helped me up. I made sure to wince and lean on him heavily, and guided me to his car. The whole drive I kept my eyes closed, but my hand was in my pocket, fingers wrapped around my phone. The emergency app Tim had installed was running, location tracking, audio recording, everything. Sunny Brook Senior Living was 40 minutes outside Portland, in a depressing industrial area surrounded by warehouses and truck stops. The building itself was institutional beige, with bars on some of the windows disguised as decorative ironwork. Brandon pulled up into the front entrance like he'd been here before. A woman in scrubs met us at the door, late 50s, tired eyes, name tag that said, Sharon. Mr. Blake, she said warmly, we've been expecting you. We've been expecting you. He'd planned this, down to the minute. This is Eleanor, Brandon said, helping me out of the car. She took a fall today. I'm worried she might have hit her head. Of course. Let's get her inside and comfortable. Sharon took my other arm. Don't worry, sweetheart. We're going to take good care of you. They led me through double doors that locked behind us with a magnetic click. The inside was worse than the outside. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, the smell of institutional food and disinfectant trying to cover up something worse. A few elderly residents sat in wheelchairs along the hallway, staring at nothing. One woman reached out to me as we passed. Help, she whispered. Please help. Sharon smiled tightly and kept walking. They took me to a small room, Evaluation Room C, according to the plaque. It had a hospital bed, a chair, a small table. One window with, you guessed it, decorative bars. "You can go now, Mr. Blake," Sharon said. "We'll call you if there are any concerns." Actually, I should probably stay. Family members tend to make the evaluation process more stressful for the patient. Her smile was professional, but firm. "We have your number. We'll be in touch." Brandon hesitated, then leaned down to me. "You're in good hands, Ellie. I'll come check on you tomorrow, okay?" He left. The door closed, and Sharon's professional smile vanished. "All right," she said, pulling out a clipboard. "Let's get the paperwork done. Do you understand why you're here?" I fell down the stairs. "Right. And your son-in-law. Your son-in-law is concerned about your ability to care for yourself. He's filed for emergency evaluation under ORS 426. That's Oregon's mental health commitment statute. I'm not mentally ill. That's what we're here to determine." She clicked her pen. "Now who's the current president?" This was the test. If I answered correctly, showed I was fully competent, they'd have to let me go. But if I answered correctly, Brandon would know I'd been faking. He'd get suspicious. He might destroy evidence, run, disappear before we could prosecute. Tim's words echoed in my head. We need him to feel safe. We need him to make a mistake. So I looked at Sharon and said, "Reagan, Ronald Reagan." Her eyebrow raised. "Reagan's been out of office for over 30 years. "Has he?" I frowned. I could have sworn. She made a note on her clipboard. For the next hour, I failed every test. I forgot what year it was. I couldn't remember my daughter's name. I thought I was in a hotel. Sharon's expression went from skeptical to pitying to bored. Finally, she stood up. "I'm going to recommend we keep you for 72-hour observation. During that time, we'll do a full cognitive assessment." "I want to go home." "I'm afraid that's not possible right now, but we'll make you comfortable." She opened the door and called down the hall. "Marcus, room C." A large orderly appeared. 6'2", 250, looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. "Get her settled," Sharon instructed. "Room 14, standard protocol." Room 14 was at the end of a long hallway, far from the front entrance. It was smaller than the evaluation room, just a bed, a dresser, and a toilet in the corner with a flimsy curtain for privacy. The door had a lock, on the outside. "Change into this," Marcus said, handing me a hospital gown. "Leave your clothes and personal items in the bag. Someone will store them." "What about my phone?" "No phones during evaluation. Safety protocol." "Safety for who?" He didn't answer. After he left, I quickly checked my phone before handing it over. 3 texts from Tim. "Location received. We know where you are. If anything goes wrong, call. We'll pull you out immediately." I typed back, "I'm okay." Proceeding as planned. Then I put the phone in the bag with my clothes and changed into the humiliating gown. When Marcus came back to collect the bag, I said, "You know I'm not supposed to be here, right?" "That's what they all say, ma'am." "I'm serious. I'm being set up. My son-in-law." "Ma'am, I just work here. You'll have to take that up with Dr. Stevenson." Dr. Stevenson, the name from the forged documents. "Friendly to our situation. We'll write letter if needed. $500. This place was in on it. The door locked behind Marcus with a heavy click. I sat on the bed, thin mattress, scratchy sheets, and looked at the barred window showing a view of the parking lot. Brandon's BMW was gone. I was alone in a locked room in a facility that was being paid to declare me incompetent. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt genuine fear. What if Tim couldn't get me out? What if something went wrong? What if Brandon moved faster than we expected and sold the house before I could stop him? What if I'd miscalculated? I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling, counting the water stains. 47 of them. And I thought about Robert, about how he'd held my hand during the scariest time of our lives, when I was pregnant with Jenny and the doctors found a lump in my breast. How he'd sat with me through every test, every biopsy, every sleepless night until we got the all clear. How he'd looked at me and said, "You're the strongest person I know. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." But Robert was gone, and I was facing this alone. I must have dozed off because I woke to the sound of the door opening. A new woman entered, 50-something, white coat, tired smile. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Dr. Stevenson. I understand you had a fall today." "Here we go. I spent Thursday night and all of Friday in that room. Dr. Stevenson came by twice. Both times I played my role perfectly, confused but cooperative, forgetting things, getting dates mixed up, asking where I was. She made notes, nodded sympathetically, told me I was doing great. What she didn't tell me was that Brandon had already filed the power of attorney paperwork. I found out from Tim, who texted me, they'd finally given me my phone back Friday afternoon, probably because they thought I was too out of it to use it effectively. He filed this morning, used the forged POA documents, tried to access your bank accounts, but the bank flagged it for verification. That bought us time. Jenny came to see you yet? I texted back. No, just Brandon yesterday. He brought flowers. He had 2. Cheap carnations from a grocery store, still in plastic wrapping. Set them on my bedside table and told me he was taking care of everything at home. Translation: he was packing up my life. Monday morning, Tim texted. That's when we move. I've coordinated with Adult Protective Services and Portland PD. They'll execute a search warrant and arrest warrant simultaneously. Can you last until then? I looked around my locked room. At the dinner tray, someone had shoved through the door slot. Mystery meat and overcooked vegetables. At the thin blanket that smelled like industrial bleach. Yes, I texted back. But Saturday tested that resolve. Jenny finally came. She showed up at 2 p.m. with Lily and Max, my grandchildren who I hadn't seen in over a week. They looked scared, these 7- and 10-year-old kids, standing in the doorway of their grandmother's locked nursing home room. Grandma? Lily's voice was tiny. Hi, baby, I said, and I didn't have to fake the emotion in my voice. Are you sick? Max asked. No, sweetheart, I'm not sick. Jenny put her hands on their shoulders. Kids, why don't you wait in the common room? I need to talk to Grandma for a minute. They left, reluctant, looking back at me like they might never see me again. Maybe they wouldn't, if Brandon got his way. Jenny closed the door and stood there, arms wrapped around herself. Mom, don't, I said quietly. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she'd lost weight, the wedding ring she kept twisting around her finger. He's got you convinced this is for my own good, hasn't he? You fell down the stairs, Mom. You've been forgetting things. We're worried about you. Is that what he told you to say? She flinched. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Jenny? Because from where I'm sitting, literally sitting in a locked room I didn't agree to be in, it seems like I'm being held against my will while my son-in-law commits fraud using my identity. Her face went pale. What are you talking about? The forged power of attorney, the fake signatures, the loan application using my house as collateral. Should I go on? Mom, you're confused. I'm not confused. My voice rose, and I forced myself to lower it. I'm many things right now. Angry, betrayed, heartbroken that my own daughter is standing here lying to my face, but I am not confused. Tears welled in Jenny's eyes. He said you'd react like this. He said the dementia would make you paranoid. There is no dementia, Jennifer. There never was. The use of her full name made her stop. I know about Sunny Brook, I continued, my voice steady now. I know about the forged admission paperwork. I know about the $15,000 check he wrote from my account. I know about the plan to sell my house. I know everything. That's not... We weren't going to... She was crying now, makeup running down her face. We need the money, Mom. We're drowning. Brandon lost his job and we have so much debt, and I thought if we could just steal from your mother. We weren't stealing. We were going to pay you back. And you don't need such a big house anymore anyway. And what? I'd be better off in this place? I gestured around the room. You came here, Jenny. You saw this room. You saw those people in the hallway. And you think this is what I deserve? I didn't know it would be like this, she whispered. Yes, you did. You just didn't care. That landed like a slap. We stared at each other across 3 feet of space that felt like a canyon. Mom, you should go, I said. Kiss my grandchildren for me. Tell them Grandma loves them. And tell your husband that Monday's going to be a very interesting day. What happens Monday? I guess you'll find out. She left, and I heard her crying in the hallway as she collected the kids. After they were gone, I let myself cry too. Tim got me out Sunday afternoon. A different doctor, one who wasn't on Brandon's payroll, reviewed my case, ran actual cognitive tests, and declared that there was no medical reason for continued involuntary commitment. Dr. Stevenson tried to argue, but the new doctor was having none of it. By 4 p.m., I was in Tim's car, wearing my own clothes again, breathing free air. "How bad is it?" I asked. "At the house?" "Bad." Tim's jaw was tight. "Brandon's been busy. He's already had people come look at the property. Told them you're in permanent care and he's selling on your behalf." He moved fast. He thought he'd won. Tim glanced at me. "Tomorrow we show him how wrong he was." Monday morning at 9 a.m., I sat in Tim's office drinking coffee that actually tasted like coffee, wearing a navy suit I'd had him bring me from my closet, watching live feed from the cameras in my house. Brandon was there, talking to someone, a realtor, based on the blazer and iPad. At 9:17 a.m., 3 police cars pulled up. Brandon saw them through the window. His expression went from confident to confused to panicked in about 5 seconds. He opened the door before they could knock. "Officers, is there a problem?" "Brandon Keith Blake?" the lead detective, a woman named Martinez, asked. "Yeah, that's me. What's this about?" "You're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." The color drained from Brandon's face. "What? There must be some mistake." "No mistake, Mr. Blake. We have 47 hours of video footage, 23 forged documents, and testimony from 6 witnesses. You have the right to remain silent." She kept going with the Miranda rights while her partner cuffed him. The realtor backed away slowly, then basically ran to her car. "You don't understand," Brandon was saying, starting to panic. "My mother-in-law is senile. She can't live alone." "I was trying to help her." "By forging her signature to steal her house?" Martinez wasn't having it. "Save it for your lawyer." That's when Jenny pulled into the driveway. She got out of her car, probably coming home from dropping the kids at school, and froze when she saw the police cars. "Brandon?" Her voice was small. He twisted in the handcuffs to look at her. "Jenny, tell them! Your mother is sick. She needs help. Tell them!" Jenny looked at the police, at Brandon, at the detective's impassive face. And then she looked directly at the camera, the one hidden in the bookshelf. She knew. She'd known about the cameras, or at least she'd figured it out. Jenny's voice cracked. "I want to talk to my lawyer." Smart girl. They didn't arrest her. Not then. She wasn't on any of the forged documents. Brandon had kept her just clean enough to have deniability. But the look on her face as they put Brandon in the police car told me she knew her life had just imploded. After they drove away, I watched Jenny sink down onto the front steps of my house, her childhood home, and put her head in her hands. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. Mostly I just felt tired. "Ready?" Tim asked gently. "Yeah," I said. "Take me home." 3 months. That's how long it took for Brandon's case to go to trial. 3 months of depositions, evidence gathering, and me learning more about the man my daughter married than I ever wanted to know. Turns out, I wasn't his first victim. Tim found 3 other women, all in their late 60s or early 70s, all widows, all with substantial assets. Brandon had worked his way through them like a virus. The first was Patricia Brennan, 72, from Seattle. He'd met her at her husband's funeral, actually showed up at a stranger's funeral to scope out vulnerable women. He'd called himself Brad Mitchell back then, played the sympathetic friend, and within 6 months had convinced her to add him to her bank accounts, just in case something happened. Something happened, all right. He drained $87,000 before her son caught on and threatened to go to the police. Brandon disappeared before they could file charges. The second was Linda Kowalski, 68, from Eugene. Similar playbook, met her at a grief support group, romance, manipulation, theft. She lost her house. The third was Diane Foster, 70, from Bend. He'd actually married this one, or pretended to. Turned out the marriage license was fake. He cleaned out her retirement accounts and vanished. Last she heard, he was in Portland, where he met my daughter. I wondered if Jenny had any idea she'd married a predator, or if she'd just been another Mark who happened to be useful. We all met on a Tuesday afternoon in November, me, Patricia, Linda, and Diane, in Tim's conference room. Adult Protective Services had connected us, thinking we might want to coordinate our testimonies. But really, we just needed to see we weren't alone. He told me I reminded him of his mother, Patricia said, stirring sugar into her coffee with shaking hands. Said she'd passed away from Alzheimer's and he wished he'd done more for her. Made me feel like I could help him heal, you know? He told me his mother was alive and they were estranged, Linda said bitterly. Said I was the mother figure he'd always needed. Diane laughed, the kind that has no humor in it. He told me he was an orphan. We all looked at each other. Son of a bitch, I said, and they all nodded. We spent 2 hours comparing notes. The patterns were identical. The love bombing, the gradual isolation, the financial manipulation, the gaslighting. The only difference was that with me, he'd used my daughter as the access point. I'm testifying, Patricia said suddenly. I didn't press charges last time because I was embarrassed, ashamed, felt like a stupid old woman who should have known better. She looked at each of us. But I'm done being ashamed. That bastard is going to pay for what he did to all of us. I'm in, Linda said. Me too, Diane added. They all looked at me. Hell yes, I said. Let's bury him. We formed an unlikely sisterhood that day. Started a group text chain we called the Silver Survivors. Checked in on each other. Shared resources. Warned each other when we had bad days and needed someone who understood. It helped. More than I expected. But the person I couldn't help, the one who kept texting me and getting no response, was Jenny. She'd filed for divorce 3 days after Brandon's arrest. Emergency custody of the kids, restraining order, the works. She'd moved into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment in Gresham, taken a second job tutoring online, and from what I heard through the grapevine, she was basically surviving on coffee and guilt. Her text started a week after the arrest. Mom, please, can we talk? I know you're angry. I deserve that. But please, the kids keep asking about you. They miss you. I miss you. I'm so sorry I didn't respond to any of them. Dot said I was being too harsh. Tim said I was entitled to my boundaries. My therapist, yeah, I'd started seeing one, said I needed to process the betrayal before I could think about forgiveness. I said I'd forgive Jenny when I was damn good and ready. The week before the trial, Jenny sent one more text. I'm testifying, against Brandon. They subpoenaed me. I just wanted you to know. I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. Even the parts that make me look terrible. You deserve that much. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. My first response in 3 months. Okay. Just that. Okay. Because what else was there to say? The trial started on a gray Monday in February. Multnomah County Courthouse, Department 12. The Honorable Judge Patricia Keating presiding. A woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and zero tolerance for bullshit. The courtroom was packed. Reporters in the back rows. Adult Protective Services observers. And in the front, behind the defense table, Brandon's mother, looking small and shocked, like she couldn't believe her baby boy could do these things. Behind the prosecution table, me, Patricia, Linda, Diane, and Dot. Jenny sat in the witness waiting area, separate from everyone. I could see her through the small window, pale, thin, gripping a tissue. Brandon was led in wearing a suit I recognized. One of the Hugo Boss ones he'd bought with my credit card. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. His lawyer, public defender named Marcus Webb, because Brandon had spent all his stolen money and couldn't afford private counsel, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Chen, mid-40s, with a reputation for eviscerating financial fraud cases. She'd told me in our prep session, "By the time I'm done, the jury's going to want to throw the book at this guy themselves." She wasn't exaggerating. Her opening statement laid out the case methodically. The timeline of Brandon moving in, the forged documents, the fake dementia narrative, the illegal confinement. She introduced each piece of evidence like a surgeon making precise cuts. Then she called her first witness, me. I walked to the stand, put my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is exactly what I did. For 40 minutes, I told my story, the cable incident, the surveillance, the forged checks, the nursing home. Sarah Chen guided me through it with questions that let me tell it in my own words. "Mrs. Thompson," she said at one point, "can you describe how you felt when you discovered your daughter knew about the plan?" I looked at Jenny through the window. She was crying silently. "Like I'd lost her," I said quietly. Like the person I'd raised, the person I'd sacrificed everything for, had died and been replaced by a stranger, because my daughter would never have stood by while someone hurt me. The Jenny I knew had more courage than that. In the witness area, Jenny's shoulders shook. Brandon's lawyer tried to shake my testimony on cross-examination, suggested I was bitter, vindictive, exaggerating. Mrs. Thompson, isn't it true that you have a history of being controlling, demanding? I have a history of knowing what I want and not apologizing for it, I said evenly. If that makes me controlling, then yeah, guilty as charged. And isn't it possible that Mr. Blake was simply trying to help you and you misinterpreted his intentions? Is forgery helpful? Is fraud helpful? Is locking someone in a nursing home against their will helpful? I looked directly at the jury. Because if that's help, I'd hate to see what harm looks like. A few jurors nodded. Next came Patricia Brennan. She was amazing, dignified, clear, unwavering. She described how Brandon, calling himself Brad Mitchell, had systematically isolated her from her children, convinced her they were after her money, and then cleaned her out himself. He found me at my most vulnerable, she said, looking right at Brandon. My husband had just died. I was drowning in grief. And this man, her voice hardened, this predator saw opportunity. Brandon looked away. Linda and Diane testified next. Same story, different details. By the time they were done, the pattern was unmistakable. Then came the forensic accountant, who traced every dollar Brandon had stolen, the detective who documented the forged signatures, the manager from Sunnybrook who admitted, under oath, that they'd been paid $5,000 to keep me there without proper evaluation. Sarah Chen was building a fortress of evidence, brick by brick. But the real bombshell came after lunch. The state calls Jennifer Thompson Blake. The courtroom went silent. Jenny walked in like she was walking to her execution. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't look at Brandon, just stared straight ahead as she was sworn in. Sarah Chen started gentle. Ms. Thompson, how long have you been married to the defendant? 5 years. And you're currently filing for divorce? Yes. Can you tell the court when you first became aware of your husband's plan regarding your mother's property? Jenny's hands twisted in her lap. About 8 months ago, maybe more. He started talking about how Mom didn't really need such a big house, how she'd be better off somewhere with, support. Professional care. Did you agree with him? Silence. Miss Thompson? I wanted to believe he was right. We were struggling financially. Brandon had lost his job and we had debt, and my teaching salary wasn't enough. When he said we could help Mom and improve our situation, Her voice broke. I wanted to believe it was possible to do both. When did you learn about the forged documents? Not until after Mom was already in Sunnybrook. Brandon told me he'd gotten her to sign power of attorney, but I never saw the actual papers until the police showed them to me. She finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. I swear I didn't know he'd forged her signature. I thought, God help me, I thought she'd agreed. But you knew your mother didn't want to go to Sunnybrook? Yes, Jenny whispered. And you didn't stop it? No, I didn't stop it. Why not? Jenny looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were red, devastated, pleading. Because I was weak, she said. Because Brandon told me if I didn't support him, he'd leave me and take the kids. He had recordings of me, things I'd said when I was stressed and overwhelmed, and he'd edited them to make me sound like an unfit mother. He said no judge would give me custody if he played those in court. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Keating banged her gavel. Order! Sarah Chen leaned forward. Miss Thompson, are you saying the defendant blackmailed you? Yes. He controlled everything. Our money, my phone, my access to the kids. I felt trapped. Jenny was sobbing now. But that's not an excuse. I should have fought harder. I should have protected my mother. Instead, I let him. She couldn't finish. No further questions, Sarah Chen said quietly. The defense attorney, Marcus Webb, stood for cross-examination. He looked uncomfortable. Ms. Thompson, you admit you knew about the plan to move your mother into care? Yes. And you benefited financially from that plan? The plan was that we would. Yes. So you had motive to go along with it? I had motive, Jenny agreed, her voice hollow. And I did go along with it. I'm not claiming innocence. I'm just explaining why. But explaining isn't the same as excusing. Webb looked frustrated. You claim your husband blackmailed you with edited recordings. Do you have proof of these recordings? They were on his phone. The police have it now. And they did. Tim had made sure of it. Webb sat down, knowing he couldn't win this one. Finally, it was Brandon's turn. His lawyer had advised him not to testify. I could tell by the heated, whispered conversation between them. But Brandon's ego won out. He took the stand looking confident. Rehearsed. Sarah Chen smiled like a shark. Mr. Blake, you've heard testimony that you forged Mrs. Thompson's signature on multiple documents. True or false? I was helping her. She was confused. True or false? The signatures they were authorized. Did Eleanor Thompson personally sign these documents? Not technically, but yes or no, Mr. Blake? He glared at her. No. Thank you. You also heard testimony that you stole money from multiple elderly women. True or false? That's not... Those situations were complicated. In Seattle, you took $87,000 from Patricia Brennan. True or false? She gave me access to her accounts, without her knowledge or consent, according to her testimony. True or false? Brandon's composure was cracking. Those women were lonely. They wanted someone to care about them. I provided companionship for a price. That's not how I'd characterize it. How would you characterize fraud, mister? Blake? Theft? Elder abuse? I loved those women, he was shouting now, red-faced. I gave them attention nobody else would give them. They were happy to help me. And Eleanor, she should have been in a home. She was a danger to herself. That house should have been ours. We took care of her. You loved them so much you stole their homes and disappeared? Sarah's voice was ice. That house should have been mine, Brandon hissed, pointing at me. I earned it, living with that bitter old Mr. Blake. Judge Keating's voice cracked like a whip. You will control yourself in my courtroom. But the damage was done. The jury had seen the real Brandon, the entitled, angry predator who genuinely believed these women owed him everything. Sarah Chen smiled. No further questions, Your Honor. The deliberation took 4 hours. The verdict came back unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, 7 years in prison, $185,000 in restitution to me, plus additional amounts to Patricia, Linda, and Diane. Permanent restraining order from all victims. Registration as a financial crimes offender. When the judge read the sentence, Brandon's mother cried out. His lawyer closed his eyes, and Brandon stared straight ahead like he couldn't believe this was really happening. I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just exhaustion. It was over. 6 months after the trial, Jenny knocked on my door. I'd been expecting it. She'd been texting again, not begging this time, just updating me. About the kids' school performances, about her new job, about the tiny apartment where she was rebuilding her life from scratch. I'd responded sometimes. Short messages. Good for Lily. Tell Max congratulations. Glad to hear it. Nothing substantial, nothing that suggested forgiveness. But when I opened this door that Sunday afternoon and saw her standing there, thin, tired, but standing straight, I felt something shift. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, she said immediately. I know I don't deserve that, but the kids, they miss you. And I thought maybe, if you're willing, you could see them. Just for an hour, at the park or something neutral. And you? I'll leave if you want. I just thought they should know their grandmother. I studied my daughter, really looked at her, the lines around her eyes that hadn't been there a year ago, the way she held herself like she was bracing for rejection. Come in, I said. She blinked. Really? For an hour. We'll talk. Just talk. She followed me inside, into the house that used to be hers, too. I'd redecorated. New furniture, fresh paint, removed every trace of Brandon. We sat in the living room, her in the new armchair, me on my new sofa. How are you? I asked. Surviving. Barely, some days. But surviving. She twisted her hands. I got a second job. Tutoring online. Between that and teaching, I'm pulling in enough to cover rent and groceries. The kids are adjusting. Therapy helps. They're in therapy? We all are. Jenny met my eyes. I'm doing the work, Mom. I'm trying to understand how I let myself become someone who'd hurt you. It's not... It's not easy seeing yourself clearly. No, it's not. Silence. I'm paying you back, Jenny said suddenly. The money Brandon stole. I know the court ordered him to pay restitution, but he's got nothing. So I'm doing it. $500 a month. It'll take forever, but you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Not for you. For me. So I can look at myself in the mirror. I nodded slowly. Okay. And I'm writing letters to Lily and Max, explaining what happened, why I made the choices I made. They're too young to understand now, but someday, she wiped her eyes, someday they'll read them and know their mother owned her mistakes. We sat there for another 40 minutes, talking carefully, like two people learning a new language. She didn't ask me to forgive her, didn't make excuses, just told me what she was doing to be better. When she left, I felt lighter, not healed, not reconciled, but lighter. The next Sunday, I invited her and the kids over for dinner. 1 year later, I'm sitting in my living room, my real living room, the one that's actually mine again, watching Lily and Max argue over a board game while Jenny makes popcorn in the kitchen. It's Sunday, our Sunday, the day I see my daughter and grandchildren. We're not where we were. We'll never be where we were, but we're somewhere, and somewhere is better than nowhere. Jenny and I have rules now, boundaries. She doesn't ask about my finances. I don't offer unsolicited parenting advice. We're polite, careful, sometimes awkward, but we're trying. The doorway chimes and Dot lets herself in. I gave her a key after everything happened. She's carrying a bottle of wine and a folder. You're not going to believe this, she says, grinning. 3 more women came forward about Brandon. Turns out he was even busier than we thought. How many does that make? 8 confirmed victims. Possibly more. She sits beside me. The prosecutor's adding charges. He might get additional time. Good. Dot studies me. How are you? Really? I'm okay, I say, and I mean it. Some days are hard. Some days I'm angry all over again. But most days I'm just grateful I fought back. You did more than fight back. You helped 7 other women get justice too. We helped each other. The Silver Survivors group is still going strong. We meet monthly now, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes to support a new victim who's just discovered they've been scammed. Patricia started a non-profit to help elderly people protect their assets. Linda became a volunteer with Adult Protective Services. Diane wrote a book about her experience. And me? I started doing public speaking. Last month, I gave a talk at a senior center about financial fraud warning signs. 50 people showed up. By the end, 12 of them had pulled me aside with stories about family members or caregivers who were acting suspicious. I gave them all Tim's card. My phone buzzes. A notification from my blog, Silver and Strong, telling me I've hit 75,000 followers. I started writing 6 months ago. First post was titled, What They Don't Tell You About Elder Abuse. It went viral overnight. Now I write weekly, about my experience, about how to protect yourself, about rebuilding trust with family after betrayal, about aging with dignity and defiance. People tell me I'm brave. I tell them I'm just pissed off and productive about it. Jenny comes in from the kitchen with popcorn, sets it on the coffee table, hesitates. Mom, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? I look at my daughter, at the woman who betrayed me and then spent a year proving she could be better. I don't know, I say honestly. Some days I think I already have. Other days I'm still angry, but I'm working on it. And I think that's enough for now. She nods, blinking back tears. Thank you for working on it. Max looks up from the board game. Grandma, it's your turn. Come play with us. I stand up, my knees creaking but solid. 78 years old and still standing, still fighting, still refusing to be diminished. Coming, baby, I call to my grandson. As I walk over to join the game, I catch my reflection in the hallway mirror. Silver hair, wrinkles, age spots, and eyes that have seen some shit but aren't defeated by it. I think about Robert, about how proud he'd be, not because I won, though I did win, but because I refused to lose. That night, after everyone's gone home, I sit down at my laptop and start writing my next blog post. Title: When They Try to Silence You, Get Louder. People ask me if I've forgiven my daughter. The truth is, forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a garden. You plant seeds, water them with honesty, and wait. Some days I look at Jenny and see the little girl who used to fall asleep on my lap. Other days I see the woman who stood by while her husband tried to erase me. Both are real. Both are my daughter. But here's what I know for certain. I will never again mistake silence for peace or compliance for love. My voice is mine. My home is mine. My life is mine. And if someone tries to take that away, I pause, smile to myself, and type the last line. Well, I still have all the receipts. I hit publish. Within minutes, the comments start rolling in. Thank you for sharing your story. You inspired me to confront my son about his behavior. I'm 72 and just got out of a similar situation. Your blog gave me courage. I read them all. Respond to a few. Make a note to follow up with the woman who sounds like she needs help. Then I close my laptop, pour myself a glass of wine, and step out onto my back porch. The night is cool, clear, stars visible despite the Portland light pollution. I raise my glass to the sky. We did it, Robert, I whisper. We protected what we built. And I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. The stars don't answer, but I swear I feel him smiling.